This is Common Criminal Podcast. I'm your host, Vince Polson, and as always, thank you for listening. Today is a very special episode. We got one of my buddies here, guy I used to sell cars with, Brandon Gilmore. Brandon, say hi to the folks.
Hey guys, hope you can hear me.
So before the episode started, Brandon and I were talking about the fact that it was actually good that we brought some diversity to the show. For a change. So I got the most diverse person that I know, and it's another white man.
Hey, that doesn't define me. I understand that you can put those two words on paper, and people probably feel as if they can get a good idea of who I am based off of that. But I will let you know, I sometimes shop in the women's section, and I get tan during the summer. So I'm trying to break stereotypes here, and I'm glad I could bring a little bit of diversity to your podcast.
That's good, man. That's really good. And actually, my favorite story about you, because I know I've done some stories about some of my buddies on here, but after you started at Nissan, you had one day we were all smoking out back, and you show up with a pack of Virginia Slims. And I didn't appreciate the comedy. It took me a whole year to realize how funny that was. That you didn't smoke and you just show up with it, ask anybody if they want probably the gayest cigarette on the planet.
Well,
It took me a whole year, and that when I think back on it, it's even funnier than it was in the moment.
yeah, so I'm the type of person who, no matter where I go or no matter what I do, I'll try to find a way that stands out and that gives me a conversational talking piece. Or I like to make myself vulnerable because I find more often than not when you meet new people or when you're at a new place, like at a new job, if you give somebody a reason to either laugh at you or laugh with you, it kind of lowers their own self-defense systems and you get an ability to read them better. When people look at you and they see you with a pack of Virginia Slims and you're making the joke, "Oh, hey guys, just letting you know Virginia Slims are coming back. Do you want one?" It opens up a conversation that they weren't ready for it. So they're vulnerable. Their defenses are a little bit down, and I feel like in situations like those, you can make a friend. You have something to go back on. You have a starting talking point, and for me, that's just one of my techniques that I frequently use with people in situations where I don't know. Is I'll do something like that. You know. Um, and everybody takes it differently. I'm sure there are probably 5 or 10 people. You might have been one of them. That's like, dude, this kid is a jackass. What is he doing?
Well, accurate. uh, but yeah, man, I agree with you 100%. Humor, and I said it on my last episode. If
Right.
you want to make jokes about other people, because I mean, honestly, the funniest jokes are the ones that cut people down a little bit, but it still can be in good fun. But if you want to do that, you absolutely have to start with yourself. Otherwise, people get the idea that you're just being a bully. But if you start from yourself, you make the joke out of yourself. People can always fall back on that. So that way, when you're making jokes together, you're humbling each other, and you're coming to this nice place where pretty much everybody's level. And yeah, I think honestly, I think that it's completely underrated. I think it's lost on a lot of people, which I think is also why a lot of people get offended by certain jokes, whether it's about them or about certain groups. I think that people they kind of don't realize that all jokes come from the same place. Whether you like the joke or not, they all come from the same place. Like just because it's not funny, if somebody is trying to joke around, they might just be bad at it.
Right.
And they maybe didn't mean to hurt anyone's feelings.
I mean, there are definitely some jokes that are done at people's expense, in my opinion. I think that they're like you use the word bullying. I think that's real. But
Oh yeah.
I think real jokes and most of the time people do misconstrue, misunderstand, misrepresent people's words or Um, and you're right. I think that the art of kidding around, joking around, is has been lost to a degree. With the newest generation, I see people not able to handle them. I think that really stems. um, from people really making an effort to try and understand what everybody is going through and what everybody is like. And I think that with that commitment to try to understand our emotions and our feelings, because we really do care about each other more these days to a certain extent, or at least we try to. We try to represent that we do.
I,
And
I
we try to show that we have better intentions, right?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's strictly a bad thing that people get offended by jokes because it does mean people are trying to be more empathetic. They're trying to look at things with a 360-degree point of view. And it's important not to you don't want to go too far in that direction because then it becomes this puritanical thing where we can't make fun of anything for fear of hurting somebody's feelings. And frankly, that just sounds awful. Uh,
Yeah,
but
I mean, that's very true. My friend was having a discussion the other day. I walked home and there's five of them downstairs, and I forget what they were doing, but I got off work late, and I walked in. They're like, "Oh, finally, Brandon's here. Perfect. You can solve this for us. You generally have like a pretty decent, well-rounded opinion on things." It's like, wow, that's probably the nicest thing I've ever heard. What's going on? And they were like, they were talking about hate speech and whether or not you should be jailed for it. And a couple of my friends, um, doesn't matter, their gender or anything, but a couple of my friends had were on the side of, if you say, what are the worst things you can say in terms of hate speech? The N word. If you say um, other super terrible, racist things, if you're saying certain things like that, should you be put in jail? And I said, well, and then the other friends had said, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, I don't believe in hate speech. I don't think that you should say those things. But I think when you start policing thoughts and words, it completely goes against what we're about here. I think
I
that those people will shun themselves. I think that society should do the policing, not the government, when it comes to those types of words. So I think what we're seeing with comedy and with jokes and all that stuff is that society is policing it, and maybe they're over policing comedy in people's jokes. Because I listen to a couple other podcasts. Some pretty famous comedians have them, and that's something that they talk about these days is kind of where comedy has gone and the effect of the societal changes on it, what you can and can't say, how humor is changing the way that we make jokes at or about people. That's changing. Like it
yeah,
definitely is.
I think you definitely hit on something really important there. Because when it comes to your First Amendment rights to free speech, the measurement for whether or not we have free speech is if there are people that are saying things that you don't like, and if they're allowed to say those things. Because if you say, "Oh, I don't like that," he shouldn't be allowed to say that, then the First Amendment failed. And the PC culture, it definitely, I mean, we get rid of a lot of trash, which is great. But at the same time, if you flame these people on a public forum, like if you make this guy apologize on national television or whatever, all you're really doing is creating a roadmap for those people who have all that darkness in their heart, and you're forcing them underground. You're not really changing anything. You're just showing them how to navigate through the minefield so that way we can just accidentally get another racist CEO. Whereas, alternatively, maybe these people would just wander through life wondering why they're always stuck at the bottom, never realizing it's because they're a racist piece of shit. But, I mean, that's more of a thought experiment. Probably not worth pursuing. I think we're pretty much in the happy medium right now, in my opinion, but I don't know. I suppose all of us have the same opinion, right?
Uh, I definitely think that we don't all have the same opinion and reference. If you look at both of us and hear both of us talk on everything at all, I don't think anybody necessarily is the same as anybody else, regardless of anything. I think our bodies are just what vessels for our souls, right? They don't necessarily define us. I mean,
That was
I don't
profound.
know. A girl told me that one time. I think we were laying in bed and I said something interesting about like about like me, or I think I told her she was too hot for me or something like that, and she said something about our bodies just being vessels for our souls, and she knew how beautiful mine was, and I just kind of I don't talk to that girl anymore. But uh,
Did she say that because you put on a little weight?
I make jokes about being a model all the time and telling women how lucky they are to be with me. Um, like I'll say things. I'll take off my shirt and say, I mean, do you see these abs coming in? I mean, you don't get a body like this by eating out of vending machines, you know. Um,
That's
but
awesome.
it's funny because again, I make myself vulnerable. I make myself vulnerable for that, and I think that a lot of times that works out. Um, that works out in my favor because I mean, obviously I'm overweight. I mean, obviously I am, but when you own it and when you're so positive and when you're so, I guess you could say, confident in a lot of ways, um, that really shines. That overshines the fact that I don't hit the gym 5, 6 days a week and carb starve myself. I think that like that sort of embracing oneself and understanding of who they are. And I do have a lot of self love. I've learned to do that, and I think that's one of the most important things you could possibly do. Is when you love yourself and you understand yourself and you forgive yourself for a lot of things and you're okay with yourself, then you're able to interact with other people at a level that frankly, a lot of people don't understand. They just don't get it. They're like, wow, you seem really put together. You seem well spoken. You seem as if you're interacting. Um, like you seem as if you understand me. Well, it's because I get myself first and foremost. I'm the person who has to be with me all the time. I get it. I like it. And, I mean, that just helps you out. You don't get as angry at these jokes that we're talking about. You don't get as angry, with the things in the world that don't go your way or the little hiccups or the little road bumps or anything because you're happier on
Yeah,
the inside, and
yeah.
that shines, you know?
You're definitely onto something there. I do on previous episodes I've talked a lot about, having to take care of yourself. Like I had a whole episode called Run for Your Life. And it's about like, working out to make yourself feel good or your doctor telling you to work out when you're 50 because you're literally running for your life. You have to lose the weight to take care of yourself. But one thing I
Definitely.
definitely don't talk about enough on the show is mental health, and I'd
Yep.
say probably 90% of that is just loving yourself for who you are. And I mean, that doesn't mean not getting better. Like, I mean, you can always be better, but it's also important to remember that where you are right now is something that you should be able to be proud of that no matter what that means. Like,
Yeah.
whether it's your job or school or whatever you're doing for yourself, and if for whatever reason you're not feeling proud of yourself, it might be time to make a change. But it's always good to be comfortable with yourself and your body. Which actually does remind me, I had some really exciting news. I am
Okay.
officially out of the obesity range. I've lost 40
You
pounds.
son
I've
of a
lost
bitch.
40 pounds from when I started working out, and instead of being obese, I'm now just really overweight.
Those scales are bullshit.
Yeah,
Because I don't think they compensate for all the other, like, for the amount of PC we have in our bodies these days. You know what I'm saying? Like we're carrying a heavy load. No, I'm just kidding. Um, so what was I gonna say in terms of self love? Um, I think that self love is super important, and I also think that a lot of the decisions you make, whether or whether or not you are proud of them now, I think that you always should be proud for making where you're at because you can always change things up. Um, which leads me to a little story from yesterday, about where you're at and still trying to be proud of it and positivity, keeping your head up. Yesterday was a really slow day at the dealership. I had two ups. Both of them were trash. But the first one that I had, and for anybody who's listening, it doesn't know what an up is. It's an opportunity. Anything that a showroom up is somebody that just comes in
oh,
randomly. They just drove by.
it does
Um,
stand to mention for our guests that you are a car salesman. I can't remember if we said that earlier or not.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm a car salesman. Yeah, I mean, it has a nice little ring to it. We're all the same. Judge me. So this woman came in, and I saw her outside in her van. It was about a 2004 Chrysler Town and Country. Windows were down. Husband's passed out. She was a black woman. She had her children with her, three children. I found out later that two of them were autistic, and that's a lot. Just that in itself, just that right there. But it gets a lot more interesting than that. She came in, she sat down, she explained to me she bought the van from a buy here, buy here, take here, whatever, one of those used car lots that always rip you off. And through the process, I found out that the credit was obviously subpar. 800 is perfect, zero is not. They were right in the middle, her and her husband. Was the way that I explained it. And I found out she was living in this van. Like she's living in it. She didn't have a job. And I was
Oh,
kind of
shit.
confused. I looked across. This woman's at a car dealership trying to buy a new vehicle that's bigger. She wanted something bigger than her Caravan. I didn't understand why at first, but that's because she wanted to live in it. Um, I did my due diligence. I spent some time with her. She was writing letters to God on my table. I look over. She took in one of my cards. She wrote "Dear God" and was writing things on it. And I looked at myself. I was like, "Oh, dear God, I have no idea what's going on. Like this is absolutely wild." So after spending 30 to 45 minutes of her telling me, she couldn't find a job, she couldn't find employment. Finding a place to live was difficult. Taking care of her children was difficult. I tried to see if she was taking advantage of as many programs as she could. But realistically, I was at work, and I had to go. There's not too much I could do at the time. Um, and we went out, and her children during this whole process, I come to find out the doors don't lock on the van, and the autistic son keeps opening up the door while she's driving.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, she doesn't have child locks. She needs child locks really bad. Um, I look at her tire; it's got the wires coming out of all of it and everything like that. And her children had thrown everything in the car outside of the car by the time I got back out. Like they thought it was hilarious. Everything. I mean, the food was that they had was all on the ground. I'm helping her pick it up. I give her a little biscuit. Turns out she puts it on for some reason on her driver's seat and smush it. Her kid jumps up and smushes it into the driver's seat. She doesn't even say anything. You know, doesn't even say anything. Kids in the back, I went and got them water bottles, and I went and handed them. I gave them water bottles. They took off the lids and dumped it in the back seat. They were just dumping it, like jumping around like little monkeys, just like dropping it. It was crazy. Um, and the husband, I guess she got married last year. I looked her up on Facebook. She had just gotten married last year. He's a full time employed, but he was passed out super hard in the front seat, man. Um, One of the kids took one of the water bottles and dumped it over his
Oh,
face,
jeez.
and he didn't even wake up. So as I was leaving, the parting words, she goes, things don't seem to be going right. It seems like everything just is not going right, no matter what. And I had nothing. I didn't know what to say, because what do you say? And I said, well, you do have this car. It seems like your whole family's here and your whole family's together. Your children have not been crying. They've not been screaming. It seems like they're positive and happy. It seems like they're having a good time. And she's like, that is right. I am glad they're all here. And I said, it's not most families aren't together. I hate to say it, but like they're not. It seems like you guys at least have each other. And she was really positive, and she was really like it was absolutely crazy, man. Like this person's life, I only got to see like maybe an hour window into it, but in that whole, I was just shocked. I was shell shocked. I didn't know what to think, but she was still managed to treat me like a human being and be happy, right? She still was able to think that things might get better and had that mindset.
Dude,
Well, the second up I had was this really, really super wealthy Asian dude who got out of his car, looked at some SUVs. When I approached him, he looked at me. The first thing he said was, "I don't have time for the bullshit, man. I don't have time for the bullshit."
that's real
I
polite.
looked at him. I said, "Yeah." well, that's interesting because I
I
feel like
peddle
it's
in
one of my
bullshit.
philosophies as well." He looks at the sticker on the car and goes, "I need this $6,000 off." I said, "Is that what I need to do to earn your business today, sir?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay. I don't know if I can, but I'll go check." He's like, "I told you I don't have time for the bullshit. You get 6 grand off, you call me." And I said, "Well, I can't call you if I don't have your number." And he like starts looking through, finally finds a card after like 2 minutes of just huffing and puffing and hands it to me. And is a senior account manager, portfolio manager at like Morgan Stanley. I mean, the dude is super wealthy, right? But he treats me like a dickhead.
It's
and he's unhappy. He was muttering like, "Oh, it's been a really long day." So it was just interesting the contrast between the two individuals that I had and saw. One of them probably has all the money in the world, but is really unhappy and has no time. The other one's just spending all of her time in her family with her van. Like not really able to figure it, but their perspectives are so much different. And here I am, the car salesman, just trying to sell a car, trying to make a little bit of money, not really producing anything, but just trying to like analyze the small window I have into people's lives that I spend with them in a car dealership. That can be kind of intense.
I actually, man, when we were selling cars together, one thing I used to say to my customers a lot was, as much time. I mean, if you sell a car to somebody, you're spending 4 hours with them. Like, I mean, maybe just like 2 to 3, but sometimes 4 hours if it's a hard deal to work.
Mostly 4 hours.
Yeah,
Sorry, everybody, that it takes so long in the car business. I promise you, we want you out of there too, but there's nothing we can do.
well, my point is that, you spend especially for somebody that has trouble getting financing, that might be 4 hours you spend with them. And I mean, on a
Right.
good day, if I'm busy, like if I've got school and work, I'm lucky if I've got 4 hours to just kick it with my girlfriend, you know? So like, I mean, you
Right.
get to know these people pretty well. And I think people take for granted that a lot of salespeople, especially like in car sales, with the amount of volume that you're doing, uh, you actually make a pretty good relationship with these people. And I mean, car salesmen aren't, despite what people think, car salesmen really aren't pieces of shit. They're just people. And a lot of people are pieces of shit. And some of those people are also car salesmen. uh
That is applicable to
every
every
job.
facet of human
Yeah,
life.
there are a lot of people out there walking around that are pieces of shit, and they do all sorts of jobs. But I mean, truthfully, the best car salesman I know, generally speaking, are like at heart decent people. And I think that that's lost on a lot of people. You touched on something when you were talking that I think that I actually kind of wanted to work into the show here. It was a concept I hadn't heard of until actually a few days ago. I guess I knew about it, but I didn't know it had a name. It's called luxury beliefs, and it's that at a certain point you hit critical mass for your wealth where you can have these opinions that are really just virtue signals that in reality are actually it would be pretty offensive if you were not so privileged and you had an opinion like this, like talking about a family that's together, and I mean they might have a lot of issues that they're working on trying to make better, but at least they've got a family. Whereas, a
Yeah.
luxury belief would be, an affluent person of wealth, saying like, "Oh, well, lifestyle choices, they're all equal, but all the different lifestyles are equal, including like single moms." And it's like, yeah, well, why don't you ask a kid who never met his dad if he would, was he better off without him? And that wouldn't cause any
Right.
residual cognitive or behavioral problems. Like, isn't that convenient to think that it would really, that they're all just equal? I mean, that would be super convenient. But the fact of the matter is, having a family, I mean, that's huge. Like, I mean, I'm blessed that my parents are still together. And I mean, honestly, it's I see like, with my girlfriend's family, um, yeah, I can't imagine, going home and only seeing my mom and then going to my other home and only seeing my dad. That to me, that's I'm blessed to not have to go through that. And I think that I can't imagine.
Are you religious? You just said blessed.
Well, I'm not strictly religious, but that's another luxury belief of affluent white people saying that all, religion is all bad. It's just bad. It's this construct used to brainwash people. Why don't you ask somebody, like maybe like a really poor person whose house has been flooded or destroyed by like a hurricane, and then the church comes together to help build that, or wheelchair bound and the church comes and helps build them a ramp out front of their house at no charge. Ask those people. You should go to them and start there and tell them that religion is always bad. Because
Yeah, I think that. Ooh, okay. I think
oh,
that
it got
I
heavy.
have faith in humanity. I have faith in humanity, and I think that people do silly things like believe in silly things. So I think that I think that that energy and the positivity that do come out of it, I don't like to credit um, some sort of image in the sky or person. I think that people are beautiful, and I'm glad that, I guess, if religion is used as that commonplace thing that makes them do some good for the community, very happy about that. I don't think that religion always does terrible things, or at least like the physical properties it embodies on our planet in people. What that manifests, I think sometimes people do good. I also think sometimes people do really bad, and it's unfortunate to me that in order for people to come together and help people for hurricanes, that they need
Need
to
they
relate
need to
that.
have the,
Yeah.
that end of life, they need to have that end of life bonus that they're banking up. You
Yeah.
know
That's what's unfortunate about it. I don't think people are terrible. I have a lot of faith in humanity. I love people. I've spent my time, and if I could, I would spend the rest of my time just traveling around and talking to different people and learning about different people, because I think we're all so interesting and we all have great things to give.
and
You know, like yeah.
you actually, again, you hit on another important thing, 'cause, as far as religion goes for me, I was raised Catholic in the Catholic Church, went every single Sunday. We were not the Easter and Christmas only kind of Catholic family. We went every Sunday. I went to Sunday school. I've read the whole Bible like 2 or 3 times, and I mean the whole thing, except I think I skipped Deuteronomy, cuz that's like mostly just laws of the church and shit. But pretty much where I sit on religion, uh in general, most religions, in my experience, in my understanding, seem to be a good they have good things to teach. Like, I don't know of any religion that says, fuck everybody all the time and cause as much pain and suffering as possible. Now, there are assholes who manipulate old religious script to manipulate people into being terrible, like, terrorism, jihadists, that kind of thing. Obviously, it can be abused, which is kind of where I stand on religion. Um, as a On a personal level, I think that it teaches you a lot of good things. It gives you maybe a frame of reference. But I think that once it gets to the point where it's a large multinational corporation, then you start to run into trouble. Like in the Bible, for instance, Jesus said pretty much to the effect of, anywhere two people meet in my name, that's mass, that's church. If two people are together meeting in the Lord's name, it doesn't matter where they are. I think he specifically says it could happen in a jail cell. Like if two people come together and pray together, then that's church. But now, 2018 years later, or 2019 years, I don't fuck it. But yeah,
Shoo.
2019 years later, you've got the guy dressed in all black with his collar backwards. He says, "No, no, 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 no. You got to be here every Sunday. And we've got this big ass building, so we need 10% of your income." And to me, I think that there was definitely something lost in there, because when it was just two people meeting in my name, now, if those two people were responsible for their own faith, to read the Bible, to like really process and be accountable for their beliefs, then I think that that would probably be good. But once you get to the point where you've got the big building and you've got like a corporate structure where the Pope's the C-level employee, I think that, not that it's necessarily bad, but just to say that it's definitely subject to abuse. And we've seen in the past where it has been abused. And I think even the most Catholic Christians of all people would have to agree that there is actual evidence that it's been abused.
Oh, dude, there's tons of children that are coming out about it, that are talking about how they've
So
been
many.
abused. I mean, like that's one of those things that you don't hear enough about. I feel like, of all the things happening to people, like there's police brutality, and there are hundreds of people. Um, I think it's in the hundreds. Are there hundreds of people being shot by police every year? Are we up to
Oh,
the
yeah.
hundreds yet?
Oh, yeah.
I don't I don't know, but you hear a lot about it, right? And it's terrible, and it's not a victimless crime, and there's a lot of reform that needs to be done. Bad. And then there's other things we hear about too, like there's people dying at rallies, people dying at protests. There's mass shootings. There's a lot of things, but you don't hear as much backlash on the church for all the boys that are also in the hundreds. It might even be more.
Oh,
It might be in the thousands.
it's
Do we
girls.
have a statistic for how many boys are probably touched
You know,
by Catholic church members?
it's lots. You know, I was an altar boy.
Did you see that type of culture? I mean, that you have a very very interesting lens into that. Tell me about your experience then.
I never got touched inappropriately. The priest was like really cool. Father Ed, I remember Father Ed. He also did my first communion. Uh, and
Nice.
you know, Father Ed, I think a lot of people really loved the guy. He was a great priest. And then we found out he slept with a journalist from like Magnificat, which is like a Catholic magazine, basically. And so yeah, he oh, I guess if you're a priest, I think it's technically an affair. If you're like sleep, because priests aren't allowed to have like romantic relationships. They're not allowed to get married.
Are you
Yeah, they're not allowed to
serious?
get married. They're not allowed to have sex. Because there's the church. They're supposed to like be put in the church first. So I guess they're not allowed to have sex. Uh,
What a strange. See, it's weird, right? Like coming from somebody who's like, you got to understand how I was raised, and I know you do. I know you understand where I stand on like religion and everything, but like, I, it's it wasn't something I went to go see because I like weird people and meeting humans and seeing human things. It's why I've gone across the world and just sat places and just people watched. Like I love how weird people can get and the weird things they can do. Homeless people in New York and riding the metro. That shit is crazy to me. It blows my mind. But I put on the same level, I put these people doing religious things. It seems absolutely nuts to me. Like it's so weird. We're the only things that do it. And I know we're the only things that do a lot of things, but we have this weird construct now where like you're working with one of these organizations like you can't have relations with people because you're putting this first, and it's like what is going on with people? Like this could be like a crazy movie to me because that's how wild it seems that all these people are participating at this to a degree in their life where it's like I don't know, it's just not my everyday, it's so different for me to think
no,
about that.
I
Just
definitely know what you mean, and the as far as that statistic goes, it's all the only number I could find was quote thousands. Didn't ever say anything specific.
okay,
Uh,
that seems kind of
well, another
baseless.
thing
I don't
too
know.
is that the only places I can find presenting this statistic are law firms that are offering, your, help for you to receive financial compensation. So another thing to remember too is that when you offer financial compensation, you open the door for a lot of people to say that they got touched. Is all I'm saying.
It's very true.
Now, and
Very
I'm
very
not
true.
diminishing by any means. I don't hope to diminish the claims of people that were like sexually molested. We know that this happens. I'm not trying to deny that it happens by any stretch. But-
No, no, definitely. I didn't know how many. I just wanted to know. I know that we hear a lot about other things. And okay, so a psychologist whose walk-in counseling center in Minneapolis has consulted with more than 1,000 victims of clerical sexual abuse. That's interesting. In Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Wait, just in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
Holy! This podcast went from funny to really, really dark really fast.
I mean, it's kind of funny
It's kind of
sometimes. I mean, South Park does it best in terms of things.
to be.
Like, I
Actually,
feel like
I'll give you more credit for that. You're definitely not wrong. South Park does make the joke a lot.
yeah, they make jokes where it's I'm getting I hope South Park lasts forever because I feel like they really do come at anybody from the same place. Um, and it's always interesting. I don't have as much time anymore to watch it, but I need to catch up on it. But
Well,
it's
they do
always been relevant.
in the first season. What they did at the end of every single episode, I think it was Kenny or not Kenny. It was Kyle. At the end of each episode, Kyle does his, I learned something today, and then he does his whole monologue about like maybe like some positive lesson that could be gleaned from the episode. And that's
Yeah,
but that's a really good example of a show that uses humor to heal in a lot of ways, because they take a complex or controversial topic of the week, they do a 360 view of it. They make fun of it from every angle. Like
I
they
know.
poke it
It's
from
awesome.
every direction. And then at the end of the episode, they give you an opportunity, or that, they kind of take the opportunity to be like, "Hey, we've looked at this from a lot of different angles, and at the end of it, maybe it's just good that maybe the truth lies somewhere in the middle of all these things." And
It's
I
very
really appreciate that. They did the one episode, they had the controversy over putting Muhammad in the one episode, and
right.
Comedy Central censored they censored like even the word Muhammad, I think, at the beginning of the episode. So then when they went to commercial break, they switched it and they did the fully censored version. I think it was episode 401, if I remember correctly. They fully switched everything, and they censored Tom Cruise, they censored Mickey Mouse, they censored them calling him a fudge packer. They censored literally everything out of the show. They just censored all of it. And then at the end of the show, it's Kyle, Santa Claus, and Jesus all do the "I learned something today" speech. They brought it back for this particular episode. And what ended up happening in their censored version of the episode, they censored the whole thing, the entire speech. They censored it, and because they were like, "This is what the show looks like. If you start censoring it, there's not going to be anything left." But the speech that they censored was pretty much to the effect of, "If we censor this show because terrorists said we have to, then the terrorists win." And pretty much that it was their own duty, that because the terrorists said, "If you do this, we'll bomb Comedy Central Studios," that they felt it was their responsibility to call their bluff or threaten them to do that, because terrorism is to try and make us live our lives differently and to be afraid. So they have to not be afraid and go forward anyway. That was what actually that's when I started watching South Park. Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is a really, I think that's a big concept that could be applied in a lot of ways as well. Especially for me being who I was always kind of a jackass and a class clown. And I always pushed boundaries and pushed things, and realistically, I can kind of identify with that concept a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
If that makes sense. I mean, people, what they're saying is people have to, you have to push those boundaries, and there has to be somebody that is that and steps up for that and stands up for that. Same with like all exercising all our rights and exercising the way that we feel about everything. I really feel like it's our and as a generation, and as the people who are on the cusp of a lot of social change and even climate change and a lot of changes, I feel like it's our duty and our responsibility to stand up and and call a lot of bluffs that are currently there and change things, if that makes
no,
sense.
I agree with you, man. Another concept I bring up on the show a lot is we don't need all these laws for every little thing to protect every single worker, to protect every single person, to protect the environment. We try and put up more and more and more laws, but really what we need ethical CEOs. We need CEOs. The way that the system is set up right now, the CEOs are only accountable to shareholders, which means they are only interested in more profit, which is
Oh yeah, the
right,
function the
which
function of the
which
business.
drives
Mhm.
wages down, it drives CEO pay level up, and it means that unless there are laws, the businesses are incentivized in operating the dirtiest way they can, for all meanings of that word dirty. They operate as dirty as they can within the confines of the law. And we just make more and more laws. We make it harder and harder for new companies to start up with new products, when really what we need is just to vote with our dollars to put ethical people in charge. And the best part is, when you vote with your dollars, the people that come in charge are going to be people that agree with you. So, whether you're conservative or liberal, it goes both ways. If you're voting with your dollars, the people that wind up in charge are going to be the people who, hopefully have similar views to you. And I'm not saying that all companies need to get woke, but I'm just saying that, that's why a lot of them do it. But a lot of people don't inform themselves enough to realize that voting with your dollars is the best way to hopefully make a better world.
You voting that I mean that is an interesting concept. I mean, the problem is with CEOs, personality types, people who get hired and how they get hired is generally speaking, liberals create businesses and start businesses, and then conservatives run them. That's just how it goes
That's
from my experience. I mean, yeah, liberals start businesses and conservatives run them. And you're right. I guess the function, making it all about profitability as the function does kind of have this sort of effect as it goes down, that you're right. They don't care. It's all about turning a profit. Um, and I don't know what to do about that. I mean, you're saying that with your dollars, you should vote with your dollars is what you're
well,
saying? Explain that.
what I'm saying is, for instance, right? Like, what's a product that a lot of, okay, we'll say Yeti coolers, I guess, are easy because they had their limelight. I think most people are familiar with
I'm drinking out of a Yeti cup right now,
I
actually.
found a Yeti cup at the soccer field when I was on my morning run one day, and I waited 2 hours. Nobody came back for it. There was nobody else at the soccer field. So I hawked that shit. I cleaned it, and now I've got a fucking $45 Yeti cup.
It's awesome, isn't it? The ice, I put ice in it at night, and the ice is still kind of there in the
Dude,
morning.
it blows my mind. I do that to my girlfriend all the time. Every time I pick up my Yeti cup, I look at it and I was like, "You wouldn't believe this." But my
Oh
my
man,
point about voting with your dollars is so Yeti, they did like the dumbest fucking thing. They decided to come out as being against guns. So if you're a gun person, that automatically means that they're against the Second Amendment, which in my understanding is that they're just more for common sense gun laws, but you can't talk to liberals about what an assault rifle is, and you can't talk to conservatives about what's common sense and what's an infringement on your Second Amendment rights. So
they're too
yeah,
polarized.
Jesus, that hopefully nobody comments on these videos anyway. Thank God, or there'd be a firestorm about that in the comments section. But but yeah, so
Maybe one
if
day.
you're a gun owner and you're very pro 2A, you're gonna a lot of those people said, fuck that, I'm not buying any more Yeti products. There's like the Arctic Ice or whatever company that makes, they make equally great coolers that function similarly. And they also make like drinking cups and pretty much all the same products. And all those conservatives all went over there, and it's the same people who stopped buying Nike products. They voted with their dollars. They said, hey, New Balance is a company that makes shoes in America with American employees. They pay a living wage, and the shoes are basically the same price as Nike's. When I'm not even talking about the quality of the shoes or anything, but when the new tariff laws are proposed, and then you have what two companies are at the forefront saying we can't operate and sell these shoes anymore with these tariff laws. And those two companies are Nike and Under Armour. Come forward and say that with the tariff laws for Chinese imports, they won't be able to sell their shoes. But New Balance doesn't have a problem selling shoes at all. They're a very widely recognized shoe company, yet they're not subject to these tariffs because they manufacture and sell in America. So me, a person who works in industry in America, from now on, I'm going to probably buy New Balances because that's a company I think operates ethically in the best interest of their employees, because they could have sold out and gone to China also, but instead they just decided that even though they could make more money, they'd rather stay here.
Yeah, that's It's tough. It's tough for me because I totally agree with that. I just for some reason I think and again I don't think you're one of those polarized people. I think that you've made a decision on shoes, and I think it's a good decision. It seems well rounded. It's just tough when you approach things from like America first, and it's that a sort of not nationalist, because that words get throws around way too often. But and it, well, actually no, it has a, I guess you could say it has a dirty undertone to it.
Well,
I don't know how I feel
Well,
about
the
that.
term nationalist has been construed because I mean, if you're talking about purchasing New Balance shoes, then like, yeah, like I guess that makes me a nationalist, and I'm also white. Uh-oh. But 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 the real but my problem is that like I'm pro-American. Like I like American cars, I like shoes that are made here, and but I mean, I don't fucking Google where
You like new American cars? Name one new American car
the
that you like.
Challenger.
You like
Dude,
that?
it looks like an old school muscle car. The Charger's pretty dope too.
I'm gonna,
You
I'm gonna,
remember Justin had
I'm
that
gonna look it up.
SRT?
That heavy ass thing. I mean, I
Oh,
get it made sense for him because if he hit you, he'd hit you like a 392. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like that was him. That was Justin. Like that car
I
made
mean, I'm a
sense
pretty
for
big
him.
boy too.
I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't buy one of the Chargers. No, honestly, I'm a foreign guy. I like
That
some nice European
that new
cars.
Supra, man, that thing is but they're bringing
Yeah.
back the Shelby GT, so they're gonna have like the extra beefed up GT 500 Mustang again. That's gonna be pretty sick.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Cayman's working over at Ford, and he's been sending me pictures of cars that he can drive. And it's interesting to me because I'm like, first of all, you're still working. That's excellent. Second, they let you drive cars. I went by there the other day on lunch break. I was supposed to go to the DMV, and I went to the DMV, and the line was too long, so I was like, "Fuck this." So I left, and I went back to over to Sheehy Ford, and I went and I was like, "Hey, Cayman, let me drive one of these Maseratis." And he was like, "Actually, no, I can't. I just got in trouble. Somebody called in and said I was driving erratically on one of the Explorers on the other side of town." I'm like, "Well, were you?" He's like, "No, this guy was being an asshole, and I had to get in, and I can't believe they called." And I was like, "Oh, true." So I don't know how I got sidetracked on that one, but he works at Ford. He works with American cars. I'm not an American car guy. I just looked up the new Challenger, and you said Challenger, not Charger. I looked up the new Charger. I'm
Yeah,
gonna look up the new
Tesla, there's
Challenger.
another American car, come to think of it.
I've only driven one of those. It was really
I
nice.
remember that one with the body damage that we fixed and you sold.
Yep.
Did you actually sell it or did they back out?
I didn't actually sell it. I had somebody on it for a while, and they were thinking about fixing it themselves. And the thing is there's a guy who's famous for
Yeah,
doing
he was
that
on
now.
Rogan.
Yeah, he was. And I wonder, I don't have that guy's contact information, but the way that it sounded and the way that this guy was approaching it, I might have been that guy might have been calling about
He
ours. It could have been
He
that
runs Electric Garage, and frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was him because I mean, he got famous because he managed to do it. That's how few people were interested in totaled Teslas. And I say totaled
guy. Right.
because that car that we sold should have been titled as a total loss.
Yeah, no, it should have. But I mean, Jeff. Jeff was a smart guy, and I mean, he obviously saw some sort of value there, like the other
When
guy. The problem, this guy wouldn't buy ours because we wouldn't go cheap enough
Well,
for
yeah,
it.
because the car's not
So,
worth anything, and I tried to tell Jeff that when they were talking about taking it in on trade, and Darren's got it all hyped up, Michael's got it all hyped up, and I see the dollar signs in Jeff's corneas, and I'm like, "Dude, you can't get that car because we'll never sell it." And he yelled at me, told me I was a fucking idiot, told me if I thought I could do a better job, I might as well just do it myself, and he pretty much chased me out of the dealership, and we had that car for like 8 fucking months before it finally sold. We had it forever, and we had 3 customers back out on it at the last second.
man, I mean, so sometimes it's fun to be right in those sorts of circumstances. But one thing I do like, and Jeff was a super cool dude. I'm working at a different place, and this is the first time I've ever had like a different like GM for the most like that's not Jeff because I worked with Jeff at like three different places, right? So like I've never had that. Dude, I miss those. I miss it. Honestly, I miss the structure. I miss the pushing you to go harder. I miss the being told not to be a cashier, to actually be a salesman. I miss little group exercises and like things that we do. I mean, just all those little things, like whether we understood what he was doing or not, made a huge impact. Like that guy as a leader, being able to work with him day to day and get that time with somebody who's so uh, uh, ability to capture people's attention and in a lot of different ways was really cool. And I'm definitely super thankful for that time that we had at that place at that time. I mean, there were definitely peaks, but like that place changed us and taught us a
Dude.
lot. Like you specifically, man. Like I have your finance manager name tag. Yeah, and your internet. I think actually it might be your internet director or internet manager
That's
one.
pretty funny.
I have one of your name tags. But like think about the somebody believing in you and liking you and giving you opportunity if you work hard for it and you do it. Like that doesn't happen everywhere. There's not a lot of those people out there that you can go and you can see somebody make a really substantial change to a business on a large scale that impacts it for years
Dude,
to
he
come.
sucked all the business out of Richmond. They're like other Nissan stores were hardly selling because we were selling all the Nissans. And I mean, he deserves all the credit. I mean, there are salesmen and then there are sales monsters. And Jeff was a sales monster. That dude knew how to get the best out of everybody. He was very
He's like a
well, he
savant
was really
in that
he
way.
was really really good at knowing what made people tick and knowing what kind of I guess influence to use on them, whether it was like the whole I'm just disappointed in you, or whether it's or even if it's like, well, you did a great job, but I know how good you are, you could have done better. He knew
Yeah.
when to give you praise on a bad deal and he knew when not to give you praise on a good one. And that was part of what made him really really great at what he did. But unfortunately for me, it was just after being in the car business, working 6, sometimes 7 days a week for a couple few years, and after that amount of time, I just realized I just wasn't happy anymore. Like I know I could still be in the car business, I could still be crushing it and killing it, but I'd also still be slowly killing myself addicted to cocaine. So for me, yeah, for me, I had to do what was best for myself and just walk away while I still had health to recover.
No, I understand. The car business is so unhealthy. I think a lot of I think that customer that I had who was a finance guy over at Morgan Stanley, I think that guy's life is probably a little unhealthy too if he's treating people like that. But you're right. I really feel like there are certain industries and businesses that are not good for you. I mean, I work with Billy now. I
Dude,
love
I love
Billy.
that
Billy
guy.
is really he is really really good at what he does, almost to a degree that's too good at just that position. That's why he stays in that position. And he's been doing it for so long. He's so fucking good at it. Um, it, I don't even know how to explain it. It's kind of a complex thing, but he's really good at that. And he's talked about how he doesn't wish the car business on any of his kids. We were talking the other day. I think we were off and we were going to get food or something. We were going to the mall maybe. I don't know. We were doing something, and he was like, I told my kids, I was saying how my siblings they didn't have jobs early as I did, and all that other stuff. He goes, fuck that. You know what? I work hard and I work in the car business that my kids will never ever be in. And I tell them that don't ever fucking try it. But I work hard so that they can have a few extra years of being a kid left, man.
Yeah.
Like he's like they have the rest of their lives to realize that this shit kind of
That
sucks.
was that was where
And
I was at when I quit. Like I was like, dude, I was like, I wouldn't hope somebody else did this. And then I was like, wait a minute, dude. I've got a fucking associate's degree. Why the fuck am I here? Like I've got time. I can still I'm not 50 with 3 kids and a wife. I can walk away. And that's
yeah,
exactly what I did. And I don't regret it. I know I was a great salesperson, and I know I would have continued to only get better. But I remember I took that trip to Dallas, man. and flew from Dallas to Seattle on a whim. Drove from Seattle through through Portland all the way to the West Coast, and I saw the Pacific Ocean for the first time in my life. And the cool thing was where me and my buddy were, we drove right onto the beach, and we just parked the car and sat with the tailgate open, just sat looking over the water. And I just remember sitting there, and I literally started to cry. Like, I was looking over the water, and I was like, dude, I thought I thought that I thought I wasn't gonna see this until I was getting close to the end. And I mean, what's more is I thought that I could just work, 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 and keep putting off all those things so I could retire early and do it all at once in the end. And we were out there. The reason why we went to Seattle and then drove to this town on the West Coast was because we were there burying his dad's ashes. And his dad, who was another car guy, he was a GM who dropped dead at like 52 years old of a heart attack. And so,
Good
yeah,
Lord.
so I'm sitting here with another guy, a guy in the car business who helped mentor me, a very good friend of mine, and we're out here burying his dad who died from exactly the kind of lifestyle I thought I was going to live. The only difference was I was going to retire 3 years after he died and then enjoy the West Coast. And I was like, dude, fuck, my kid's going to be flying me out here to bury me in the sand. And I don't know. After that, it was like I got that out of my head when I got home, and then over 4 or 5 months, I was just like, dude, yeah, I
Transitioned
was
out.
just like, I was looking for the door. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I think a lot of it was a toxic. I mean, I guess it's toxic. There's toxic work environments everywhere, but that place specifically was pretty tough. If you can make it there, you can make it
Well, I think
anywhere.
it was around the time that Jeff knew he was leaving that the good reasons to stay were gone. And yeah, so for it, I think I picked the right time to I could I think I picked
Things.
the right time to walk away.
Right. 100%.
But anyway, man, I know you've got work here in a little bit. I've got class here in a little bit. So I think it might be time for some Keenan Rayner music, but we should definitely do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. It was nice talking to you, man. Woke up on time, on cue with the construction going outside, and also on cue with the dog whimpering downstairs when his owner leaves to go to work. So I'm glad it was up and ready. So yeah, let's do it again sometime for sure.
Absolutely, bud. Well, everybody, thank you for listening as always. And the song is "Hammock Hustle" by Keenan Rayner.